Hello and welcome to the Lunch and Learn for the American Advertising Federation Heartland. I am Priscilla McKinney and I am the president here of our club. It's a volunteer club that we want to pour into to make sure that we are always upping the level of service and also ideas and creative here in the Heartland area. So I think that Shawn Askinosie is somebody who probably could go without an introduction in our area. If you have been around business and innovation and also just some of the really cool local movement with making sure that we're, we're being, what would you call it, like a duty of care to our own places where we live and work. His name is really synonymous with that. So Shawn, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we're going to get into some questions specifically about Askinosie chocolate, how you got there, and really what the entire big picture of doing good business looks like. I think it's suffice to say that you started doing that maybe before it was a trend. Can we agree with that?
I think that's true.
Yeah.
And thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah.
I think that's true.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to let you tell a little bit about the Askinosie story, just a little bit for anybody who's here who doesn't know that, so that it can provide some context. And then I have a couple of questions, and I know that you have a lot to offer us in terms of, your experiences over time, not only with, with the growing business, but also your interaction with creatives. And I think that'll be really interesting for us. But give everybody a little bit of primer on how you crazily went from law into chocolate and why that transition.
So I was a criminal defense lawyer for about 20 years before I started the chocolate factory, and I specialized in serious felony cases. When I got out of law school, I moved to where my wife is from, which is North Texas. So I practiced law in Dallas, Fort Worth, and we still have a lot of family in Texas, but I wanted to come back home. I grew up in Springfield, and so I came here and started specializing in street crime and then white collar crime. And I loved it. I loved the courtroom. I loved everything about it. Loved just preparing for trial, and it didn't feel like work. And then I stopped loving it. And it was a fairly dramatic sort of, the spigot kind of turned off fairly dramatically, I guess I should say. And so then the problem was I knew I wanted to do something else, but I didn't know what that was going to be. So I first started, and this is what people often do, I started working in other areas of the law. So I started kind of saying, oh, well, maybe I don't need to do criminal law. Maybe that's it. Maybe I'll do this, that, or something else. And that really wasn't working. And I didn't have any hobbies. I didn't know how to do anything else. I took, basically political science in college, what little I remember of it, and no business classes. And so I just didn't know what it was going to be. And so I still practiced law, but I had about a 5-year search period that ultimately led me to chocolate. And that kind of was generated from some hobbies, really grilling. I bought a big green egg and then another one. And then I started baking, and then I started making chocolate desserts. And then in 2005-ish, I formed Askinosie Chocolate, went to the Amazon, learned how farmers grow cocoa beans, how they influence flavor by how they harvest them. And I came back, started buying equipment, started winding down my law practice. I still have a law license. I keep it active. I just don't practice. And then, that was it. And here we are.
Well, I think any journey that ends in chocolate is a journey I'm willing to go on with anyone here. So, and I know there's several people that I know pretty well on this call who would agree with that. So this is interesting. The book that you ended up writing called Meaningful Work. And I went ahead and put the link over in our chat, and we'll definitely be promoting it through our AAF chapter in our live events, in our face-to-face events. But Can you tell us a little bit about what I alluded to, this idea that it was pretty early on in your career where instead of just making chocolate, you realized that you wanted to do something more socially responsible, something more sustainable, something more in alignment with your values. So tell us about how that came about with Askinosie Chocolate.
The factory is located on Commercial Street. And when I bought that building in 2006, there really wasn't very much activity on Commercial Street, but I still had to basically beg the city to let me put a chocolate factory there. They wanted to put a bar in there, and they wanted a kind of entertainment district, which is cool, but I wanted to, do some light manufacturing. And but at the time on Commercial Street, for those of you who are familiar with it, or maybe you remember it back then, there were a lot of social services on the street. And the Missouri Hotel, which was at that time Springfield's largest homeless shelter, was literally practically across the street. And so when I realized that I could buy a building for my factory, I wanted an older building. I couldn't afford downtown. And when I realized that the Missouri Hotel was there, the Gay and Lesbian Alliance of the Ozarks was next door, multiple social services on the street, I was like, this is very cool. This is exactly what I want. I want to be near this. And so you could go up and down Commercial Street right now and ask the retailers and business owners, hey, are you glad that the Missouri Hotel is gone and there aren't weird homeless people hanging outside your business and falling down on the sidewalk? Aren't you glad about that? 99.9% of them will be like, yes, thank you for getting rid of all the homeless people on Commercial Street. I am the only one who continues to, well, I shouldn't say I'm the only one. I think I'm the only one that would say, no, not so fast, because they were sort of gentrified out of Commercial Street, I think. And for me, yes, I have a storefront in front of the factory there on Commercial Street. And we like to sell chocolate there. But I want to be and want our people to be exposed to this experience of poverty. And so the day we opened, from the moment we opened the factory, we had our program called Chocolate University, where we engaged the kids at Boyd to teach them that business can be a force for good in the world and that there's a world beyond Springfield, Missouri. So we've been in Boyd since day one. So it wasn't like I started the factory, then I thought, oh, hey, there's this thing over here. What about that? So it just kind of happened together. And then we did it. Then we started doing it at Pipkin. Then we started doing it at Central. Then from our high school program, which is a business immersion program that people have to apply for, juniors and seniors in high school. Now it's any junior or senior can apply in Greene or Christian County. And that is a program where students spend the spring semester kind of working on a project with us. And then they spend a couple of weeks on the Drury camp, or a week on the Drury campus, learn about Tanzania culture, language, history. They go home and pack, meet me at the airport. We go to Tanzania, and they have an unbelievable experience meeting farmers, that I have a decade-long relationship with. We didn't get to go last year because of the thing. And then I'm hoping that we can go this year. We'll have a new crop of students. We have a lot of community development work in the Philippines and in Tanzania, but it all just kind of melded together. It all just kind of came together. Now we have our own foundation, a 501c3, which, thank you for contributing to that for this event, called the Chocolate University Foundation. And that supports our work. What was your question again?
Yeah, I want to know, this seems to me like this doing good was really baked into the DNA of the company at the very beginning. And so, yeah, it just even what you're expressing here is that, yeah, it started with, really having a love for local, but then it comes into, okay, now I'm going to actually have relationship with the farmers. And then it turns into, now let me turn back around to my community and see if we can get younger people to really understand the business and move forward. Mm-hmm. So I really want to get at that story of this isn't like an afterthought or a marketing ploy that came on top of Askinosie Chocolate.
No, in fact, when I saw the title of our session, it says "Doing Good is Good for Business," and it says with Shawn Askinosie. I thought about correcting that title, but then I thought, no, this will be fun because we can talk about this. Because I have a news flash for the 12 people we have here, however many people is on this call. Doing good is good for business. You know,
Sometimes, maybe not always.
well, no, in the beginning when, I have an evolving view of this philosophy. Like, for instance, in the first few years, like, you will not find the phrase social entrepreneurship on our website. I hate that phrase. And that's kind of strong. I don't like it. I really, really don't like it. And I think it should be stricken from college textbooks. And I've tried to remove it from our website. I hope you don't find it on our website, but it's because I think it's an elitist term. It sort of separates these so-called woke, people who act as if, they're doing something and they want to take their picture while they're doing it so that everybody, on Instagram can see how nice they are. And but it's just good business. That's the thing. It's just, are you going to be, as you said in the introduction, do we accept as business people a duty of care? Yeah, it's simple as that. Do we or not? Yes or no? Okay, if we do accept that, then what are we going to do about it? How are we going to embrace that? What can we take on? What's too much? And so what I would turn the question back around and say, when you say, or whoever came up with the title, good for business, what does that mean? Good for business. Who wrote the title?
That is so interesting to unpack, because
Chris or Priscilla, or who did that?
I don't really recall. We're quite a, like,
probably you. Okay, what did you guys mean? What did you mean? Good for business?
Yeah, well, I think it is about unpacking that and saying, is it good for, is that revenue? Is that purpose? Is that humanity? Is that our society? Are we creating the world and the soup that we want to swim in?
Yes.
So yeah. I think there is a lot to that, because I think what you're alluding to here is certainly at the beginning of, of Askinosie Chocolate really taking this on. I imagine it would have cost you a lot of money. And I imagine it wasn't convenient at a lot of turns.
Yeah. No. Well, I mean, when you mean cost a lot of money, you mean to open the factory itself, or?
No, it probably cost you a lot of money to do the things the right way that you wanted to do it, as opposed to just being in it for business for money.
Great question. I've never looked at how much it costs. That's a good question. You'd think after 15 years, I might have looked at that. I really don't know, because one of the things that I encourage in this, and you're going to ask me this question later, for those of you on the call who work with clients, I mean, everybody raise your hand if you have clients or you are in an agency or something like that, and you're okay. Well,
I know everybody in this call, and they all do.
So, there's this idea of, how can you help them? And one of the things I encourage people to do is to not silo these activities. I don't care if your company is one person or 1,000 people. I believe that these activities of, can we say, well, let's just use what you said, acceptance of our duty of care. I don't think that should be siloed into the CSR, the corporate social responsibility department of XYZ company. And that's not where it belongs. It belongs in, it should be diffused throughout the organization. It's messier, harder to manage, but more meaningful. And so I encourage you to talk to your clients about not doing that, and to try to discipline them away from being siloed into this. And then I think your question the one you just raised is a good one to raise with your clients, which is doing good for business, blah, blah, blah. I mean, what does that mean, client? What does that mean, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, or whoever your clients are? What does that mean to you? Let's get at that. How can we figure out for you? Because wouldn't it be great? One of the titles of one of the chapters of my book is How Much is Enough? I may write an entire book on that. How much is enough? Because I learned about that. How much is enough? What I call the sort of sufficiency economy, from the monastery where I'm very actively involved in south of Ava, called Assumption Abbey, Trappist monastery. I'm a family brother there. And how many fruitcakes do they make a year? They make enough. That's how many they make. They make enough. Same with the Trappist beer in Europe or whatever. And so there's this question. I encourage people, you guys, to ask your clients this question: how much is enough? Wouldn't it be awesome if you knew how many Instagram likes would be enough in your business before you're like, oh, hey, that is cool. We got 50 likes on that in the first hour. That's what we were hoping for. No, instead, people are like, 50, that's not enough. That was good for yesterday, but I want 500, that's not enough. Now I want 1,000. I mean, I need to be, Khloe Kardashian level of, so when is enough enough? Right. These questions that we're talking about right now are great questions for, a marketing firm or a marketing department to be encouraging the organization to answer, because it sure does help along the way. Because as you said, Priscilla, well, is it revenue? Is it top line revenue? Is it, for me, I ask these questions and I say, well, it's not just top line revenue, it's also cash flow, because we don't really take on very much debt. So it's cash flow. It's, can we provide insurance for employees? Can we pay people more money? There are a lot of other questions besides top line revenue, but the reason I said that this is kind of a headline is because I want to dispel the notion that if you think you're going to do good and that it will be good causally for your top line revenue, I'm begging you to think again.
Right.
I would say, look, if we all, is there anybody here from Great Southern? I'm just going to use them as an example.
No.
Okay. All right. If you, let's just say, and Joe Turner is my friend, went to law school with him, but let's say you go to you encourage your client to go to Great Southern, and you're like, hey, they can partner with you, or let's say you're a nonprofit and you're like, hey, we want to go to Great Southern and have them sponsor our event. Well, who are you going to talk to at Great Southern that's going to sponsor the event, have their name on the t-shirts, have their name on the banners and whatever? It's the marketing department. And it's that way for every place. It's the marketing department. Why? Because it's cool. That's fine. They want to spend marketing dollars. It's marketing dollars for a nonprofit. They're doing good. It's a win-win, right? That's the way a lot of this money flows. And so what I'm saying is there's nothing inherently wrong with saying, as a business, we want to get some marketing, bang for our buck by also being a good citizen of the community. There is nothing wrong with that. Right. Not at all. But what I am saying is that behavior, if I could call it that, it could come from a deeper place. It could be even more meaningful. It could be more impactful for the employees that are involved in the give. And, but that's hard work. And so it's hard work, because I'm just telling you, kind of to your question, if that costs a lot of money, I don't know how much it costs, but I can just tell you that the value of my company, like if I was going to go sell the chocolate factory tomorrow, the value of my company is lower because of the work that we do. It costs money. So we have fed over 1 million school lunches. I only have 18 full-time employees. We've done over 1 million school lunches between Tanzania and the Philippines, all sustainable with 0 donations. We built a preschool that opened 2 years ago in Tanzania. And we're just now in the sustainability phase where the farmers are operating it on their own. Well, that takes money and time and all kinds of money and time. And just, but if I was going to go sell the company, and Priscilla, if you were like, hey, I want to buy your factory, how much? Well, you are not going to put a value on that good work. Yes, I know there's something called intangibles, and I get it, but that's not the way it's going to work. It does not work in this world today.
I want to unpack one other thing you said, because I like what you're saying, that I think it is very much of interest to everybody, all the other things that are going on in these other countries where you are sourcing this cocoa. But I also want to point out, you said I want to be able to provide for my employees. But I happen to know also that for you, that word employee, that's a much bigger idea, and it's a much bigger sphere of influence. So I happen to know for a fact the dynamics of how you actually work with your vendors in other countries and what you're doing with the actual the farmers who are bringing you this cocoa. So tell us a little bit about that, and why it is that they would want to partner with Askinosie, over another venture.
Well, for the farmers, one of the main reasons is because we've developed a relationship with them over the years. In the before times, I went there every year,
Mm-hmm.
and so hopefully I'll be able to travel again. And I was on the phone with some people not like a Zoom call this morning with people from the Philippines, and talking with people from Tanzania all day today. But when we see them in person and we're developing relationships, then they feel a loyalty to me and I feel a loyalty to them. But the other thing is we practice open book management, and we open our books to the farmers. And I've done this since the very beginning. And what that looks like is we translate our financials into whatever language they need. So our financials are in Swahili when I go to Tanzania, because we profit share with them.
Mm.
And and in some cases, in some origins, we engage in some community development. So the farmers want to do business with us. The other thing is that I pay a lot of money for the cocoa beans. I pay way more than market value. I publish all that stuff on our website. It's audited so people can see what we pay, how it compares against the fair trade price, which I don't believe in fair trade cocoa. That's another, that would be another hour.
Another potential marketing ploy again.
But well, yes, they've become a victim of their own good marketing. And I can't speak to fair trade coffee or anything else other than fair trade chocolate. But yeah, they've become a victim of their own great marketing, because now people think, oh man, fair trade. Yeah, I'll pay $1 more for this because the farmers are going to benefit. But unfortunately, the farmers don't benefit. Their study after study is talking about how farmers are not getting that money. But so this is how we develop relationships over, years and years. I've been buying beans from the farmer in Ecuador for 15 years, same guy, and, there's a lot of back and forth. And, a lot of the farmers have had, some money troubles this year. We've sent money way in advance. I paid money in June this year in advance on a 1-year contract in the following June. So, so it's just and I'll also say we've received in the last, since the pandemic, we've received some of the best beans we've ever received. Wow. And even though I haven't been there, because the farmers, they care. Right. They really care. Right. Yeah.
I love that. We have a question from in the group here. It says, how do you get your employees on board with your mission? And is that something you actually vet in interviews, or how do you figure out how those values align before you hire? It's a small team, so that's an interesting question.
Yeah. I write about this in the book too. It used to really bother me in the beginning when not everybody was, I was going to use kind of a derogatory term, but when not everybody was on board, shall we say. And it bothered me, and I was like, well, what's going on? But what I've learned over the years is that resistance in any form that an employee may have is good for me and the leaders of my company, because it presents us with an opportunity to consider an alternate viewpoint, that, and often it can, sort of illustrate a problem that we need to address, or something that we haven't considered. Because like me, for example, I'm so gung-ho, let's do this. Let's just jump off and build the parachute on the way down. And it's nice to have somebody occasionally put the brakes on. So what we try to encourage in the company is a harmonization of differing views, as opposed to like, we don't really believe in consensus but we try to harmonize those views. And specifically to the question, no, I don't vet for it in the interview process. We don't need to. I mean, often we can just sort of tell. But I also I leave it open so that people can find their place in the organization for their meaningful work, to use the title of my book. So
Yeah.
This idea of meaningful work is really not about, yes, it's about, is there an opportunity for engagement in the workplace? And is there an opportunity to be a part of something bigger than, the sum of the parts, or bigger than the whole, and all of that's true. But ultimately, this idea of how it's a very interior place of singular of a person. So if Ashley, for example, is, well, that's not a good example, but because she owns her own business, I think. Is that right?
No, she works with me.
Oh, perfect. Okay. So if Ashley was promoted to a higher title and more money, and those observing would say, well, that's exactly what she wants. Congratulations. She's getting more money. She's got a better title. But what if she's not happier? What if she finds less meaning? But so often what this is not the title of our job. It's the attitude that we bring to it. And so it's why we find we all know these people who are working menial tasks in whatever place in our community, or that we just happen to run across. And you're like, why are they so happy? Or why, right. what mushrooms are they taking? I mean, so it's this, what are they doing? And it's this very, very interior place. And so what I'm saying is that if someone is saying, well, I don't really care about the school lunch program in the Philippines. Okay. That's all right. But they say, but I really, really care about roasting cocoa beans. And I really, really love that, and I love it because I can do it by myself and I can really affect the flavor. Okay, cool. Do that. So that's
I love that. So that's not an imposing of the social values that you have on someone else. It's about saying, look, this was my business. And there's kind of a follow-up question to that. And it'll give us a chance to talk a little bit about your foundation. But you set the business up legally as an actual for-profit business. And then now you have the foundation. So there's kind of a question there of, why that way? And is that what you recommend if you know that you're going to be doing, and I know I'm not supposed to use that, social good or whatever, but if you feel like you are going to be entering into a business where you are going to be very mindful, and the purpose may be to be very mindful, and the business is just allowing the cash flow to be mindful socially. What was your thinking there?
Okay, I want to make sure I understand the question, because I'm looking at it. It says, what would you say to another business owner? That one who struggles
how would you recommend in setting up a business legally when you plan to do something like this? So the 501c3.
Oh, yes. Oh, thank you.
Do it as you did.
Okay, that's easy. Okay, in the beginning, what I did is I was like, hey, we're going to do these cool things, we can pay for it. I mean, we can, in fact, it doesn't cost any money for us to give chocolate to kids that come over from Pipkin, or, this is free. Or if we go talk to the school and talk about farmers or talk about geography at Boyd, that doesn't cost any money. When it started costing us money was when I started taking high school students to Tanzania, and I could not pay for all of that because it was $4,000 a kid. We're taking like 14 kids. So I couldn't do that. So I started raising money to do that. This is where whoever asked the question, listen up. This is what I'm giving you is the secret. What we started doing is we opened an account at the Community Foundation of the Ozarks. So, go talk to Brian Fogel or whoever and say, hey, we want to open an account with you guys, a community foundation, a donor account, and they're going to say, what's it for? And you're going to be like, well, I don't know. We want to do some good stuff in the community. We want to, help with a kindergarten class or whatever. You open the account and then you can put money in it. It doesn't affect your tax status at all, but you could, if you want to put money in it, fine. But what it allows you to do is ask other people who share your passion for this project, whatever, I don't care what it is, as long as it's some kind of, what could we say, philanthropic project. It could be your church, synagogue, wherever. And if I say to Chris, hey, Chris, like, let's say this was 10 years ago, and I was like, hey, Chris, would you please sponsor one of our high school kids? He's like, how much? And I'd be like, 4,000. He was like, hey, put me down for 8,000. No problem. And I'd be like, okay, here's what I need you to do. Write your check to the Community Foundation of the Ozarks, put Chocolate University in the memo line. It would go to our account. That would all add up. And then when it came time for us to, fund the trip, it would come out of that. So I kind of call it the, poor person's nonprofit. And it didn't cost anything. It did. I mean, you don't pay Community Foundation anything. They have use of the funds, but this is a great way for, just a one person organization can do this.
Right.
And then, but over the years, we were involved in so many disbursement of funds that it became a little bit challenging. And when we started to build the preschool in Tanzania, we knew we needed to do our own thing.
A full-on foundation.
So that's when we, got the lawyers and the CPAs, and we did.
So someone's asking someone's asking that too. Do you think that your past in law actually helped you prepare for handling some of this?
Well, Clint Eastwood said a man's always got to know his limitations. I forgot what movie it was, but might have been Dirty Harry, or was it? Anyway, but in order, so no, what it does is it does allow me, because I promise you, I know nothing about nonprofit law, or really very much other than criminal law, but it does give me at least the opportunity to recognize that I don't know, and so I can say to myself, oh, we really need a good lawyer on this nonprofit stuff. And we do have one. And so this is, so no, the law, it's helped a little bit in things like reading contracts, things like that, or with international shipping. I mean, we're one of the only chocolate makers in the United States, including the big ones, that actually import the cocoa beans. We are the importer of record of beans, right now at this very moment. I'm trying to get a container out of Tanzania. And I don't know if any of you are involved or have clients that are involved in international shipping, but it's impossible. And it's been impossible now for a while. I don't care where it's coming from, China, Europe, whatever. And it's really, really, really hard to ship things. It is pandemic related, and so that helps me. So my law degree helps me with that a little bit.
Those kinds of things. Well, Chris is asking a little bit about that loyalty. Can we unpack a little bit what you talked about, that you have these really deep relationships with you would say vendors, but they're the farmers. They're your partners in some way. And because they get a profit share, of course, they are your partners. So you mentioned that loyalty, and it sounds like that comes from a very personal place for you too, because you spent so much time personally developing those relationships. But what would you say to a business owner who really struggles to value maybe those more personal aspects, almost like they have a dichotomy, like here's who I am as a person and here's who I am as a business person? What would you say there?
Oh, I would say to that person, have you thought about maybe talking to someone about that? Because I say this a lot, but the math people say that you're going to spend on average 80,000 hours at work. And if your view is that you're not going to let your, this is going to sound very Brene Brownish, but if you're not going to let your heart come to work, then what's the point? I mean, because if the point is, well, we're just supporting this current paradigm of capitalism that we are currently experiencing, that's boring and yucky. And who wants to do that all day? Because by the way, I mean, we all know the capitalism of today is not our grandparents' capitalism
Right.
or our great grandparents, nor should it be. And we call it capitalism. It's really not. I mean, it's a corporatocracy, and it's okay. But we have to work within it and understand the boundaries and limits. But I think it's really depending on what age you are, I think if that's your view, then it will become harder and harder to really be a real person if you're not bringing your heart to work in some way or another, so that you can be demonstrating compassion even at work and be receiving it at work, and not just with your coworkers, but with the people you talk to and the people you talk to on the phone, and the people that are your vendor partners and stuff like that.
Well, let's wrap this up with, I think, something very tangible you can do to help us as we look at how do we not come into our work and say, this is who we are as a person, this is who we are as a professional, and we really bring that together. A lot of us on this call, we do have opportunities to have these important conversations with clients. Like you said earlier, ask them, what do you mean by doing good? And get involved in that conversation. Just kind of keep asking why and get curious. But you and I talked before a little bit about, we know that really the consumer is driving a lot more now than they ever have. And so businesses are responding, whether you think about B-School, social enterprise, all these trends and all these, words everybody likes to throw around. But the consumers there is something en masse where they're asking companies to be more transparent about their values, and they are being held to account in a large way as well.
Yes.
Because of that, a lot of companies are kind of, just putting a thin veneer of, social consciousness, like you mentioned at the beginning, this ridiculous kind of woke thing. If it is not legitimate, if it really is not deep, then what is the value? So tell us, give us some advice, because you've worked with a lot of creatives over your span. What could we be doing to have and sustain those meaningful conversations, so that as we do creative, as we create messaging, that we really are being a part of that solution for other businesses and making sure they're not just doing this marketing ploy kind of thing?
Yes, thank you. That's a great question. And first, let's understand the problem. And it's become very complicated. In the earlier years, this was called greenwashing, when people pretended to be environmentally friendly to the world and they greenwashed. Now it's called social washing. The Fortune 100 do this. So, we see, I used to be, in the old days, a member of the Clinton Global Initiative. So I'd go to New York and rub elbows with the CEOs of whatever, Unilever, whatever, and these people. And I was really amazed at the kind of social programs that they had all over the world. They spend millions and millions of dollars, not only on the programs, but even more money promoting that they do the programs, because of what you've said. So here's what's happening. The consumer is currently, in my view, the consumer is lagging behind in the wake of the marketing campaigns of these Fortune, let's call it the corporatocracy or the Fortune 100 or whatever, that these marketing campaigns, consumers are in the wake of these campaigns. So whether it's a social media influencer, that has 10 million followers, that's promoting whatever product it might be, the consumer is lagging in that wake of social awareness and social consciousness. And by lagging, what I mean is they're biting the hook. Okay. So they are taking that in, they're believing it, and not, in most cases, not digging much beneath what you said, Priscilla, the thin layer. Okay. So this means that there's a lot of money to be made in helping companies market their good works. And let me just take a pause and say, That's fine. Just like I said with this, look, you go to my social media. We promote our stuff. I mean, we do. But what I'm saying is, where does it come from? It comes from the heart of the company. It's not because I thought, hey, I'm on Commercial Street. I think what I'm going to do is help some kids at the Missouri Hotel and then brag about it so people will buy my chocolate. No, that is not what happened. And so if you want to help, okay, but let me just say the consumers are currently lagging, but there's also this counter trend that is gaining momentum in which very sophisticated consumers are wanting to really look under the hood. They're not going to bite on the thin layer of information that's being fed them. They want to know, let's take Everlane, for example, you know, a great DTC company that sells apparel at pretty good prices because the stuff isn't made by, I mean, the stuff is made by supposedly reputable places in Vietnam and other.
Right.
You know,
And no sweatshops.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Okay. Well, we are coming to a time, and I'm in the middle of a blockchain thing right now where this company approached us from India with an American presence. And would we experiment with them on a blockchain example where we can use it in a marketing, but also understand the supply chain in a blockchain perspective? So we are coming to a place where consumers, we're not there yet, but we're close. I mean, not just with QR codes. I mean, I'm talking about with photo technology, and we're coming to a place where this is going to flip, where consumers will now have so much information. They're there right now where they have so much information available. The problem is they can't access it easily and customized to what they want. So when I have my phone and I'm at Whole Foods with my product, with one of my products, you're going to be able to just wave the phone over not a QR code, just wave it over. And there'll be some things that pop up, a little video or whatever, and it's all connected to the blockchain. Okay. But what I'm saying is that's been around, but what's going to happen is consumers in the next 10 years are going to flip this, and every consumer that cares will be able to customize exactly what they want to know. Where was it made? Who made it? What's the environmental footprint? What's the carbon footprint? What's the pay for anything that they want to know will be available for them to know, to make a buying decision. This is coming. And so what I am saying in the last few minutes that we have, and I'm not just saying this to promote my book, because I mean, but I've often thought that if someone in a marketing firm took the first 3 chapters of my book, or maybe just chapter 2, and sat down with some clients and said, okay, I want you to read this book, but we're going to really dive into chapter. I remember when I first started the factory, I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, I had no idea. And Bob Noble wanted to charge me 15 grand. He was being nice. I mean, that was at a discount, to sit down on a Saturday morning to do this, you know, I forgot what it was before Culture Wave. I forgot what it was. He wanted to do this session with me. And I was like, I can't afford that, you know, for this right now. But there's a way in which someone could take chapter 2 of my book in over 2 or 3 weekends with, you know, your entrepreneur client, with 2 or 3 people in the group, and really do a deep dive into some of this stuff. Some of it's uncomfortable, but understand what is the heart of what you want. How much is enough? Where does this desire come from for you to do this thing and make this thing or provide this service? Where is it coming from? What's the root of it? What is your heart? And because I talk about this a lot, and you said you've watched my TED Talk, you know, where does it hurt? Where does it hurt? If I could ask entrepreneurs one question, and I could spend days with them and help them, if they would open up to me about where does it hurt? Do you have a broken heart? And this, I believe, is where people can really use what I'm talking about in my book and in this session that we're doing now, to get at the root of the reason that people want to do the thing that they're doing and go forward with it, you know, to build something. And to not just, it's not a one-off. So this kind of thing where you sit down with your client and say, okay, you know, where does it hurt, that kind of stuff, and go through these exercises. It's a tune-up because this stuff is evolving. It doesn't stop. We're constantly moving and evolving as humans, you know. We're what the evolution is, in my view, is we're getting to know ourselves, but we need help with that. And so for those who were talking earlier about, well, what if you don't want to be that at work, you know? Okay, well, that's fine. You know, you don't have to do that. But I think a more meaningful life is brought to the table when we can do that, when we're willing to express that.
It's so interesting, Shawn, because, you know, we do live, you talk about like our, you know, capitalist society, but we also live in a society that just overly praises entrepreneurs, and is specifically successful or overtly very, you know, in the public, successful entrepreneurs. We glorify really that, you know, that high level, that C-suite. That's just completely baked into our environment, right? And so what I hear you saying is, you're saying, that's my job. That's like the vehicle for me being a human. I'm being a human first. And then it just so happens, oh, look at this. I run a chocolate factory, and that's the way in which I'm able to move about the world and be that human that I want to be.
Yeah. Ramana Maharshi, Hindu, you know, his famous kind of thing was this question, who am I? The great religions of the world, all of the great religions of the world ask that question, who am I? Thomas Merton is, you know, who is the true self? So if you, and I'm being serious, but as a marketer, as a person who helps people, if you can help your client or your company answer the question, who am I? And recognize that it's going to change over time, and that's okay. We want that. That's what we need in this world. We need people who will help other people answer that question, who am I?
Yeah, I think that's a Wendell Berry quote that is, don't ask what the world needs, but ask what makes you come alive. And,
exactly.
you know, it's like, it's truly being yourself there. Shawn, we were happy to make even a small donation to the foundation. We really are in love with a local person who's doing really a business that we really are impressed with, but also just that we can aspire to, because it does inspire us to say, you know, we don't just have to be professionals. We can also be the amazing humans that we feel that we're called to be. So thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. We'll be buying some of your books and giving them out in some other promotions during our club at other events, and just hope that this, you know, this movement really that I feel that you are putting your energy toward really does become more pervasive in our industry. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me, and Chris, thank you for the invitation. So, all right, we'll talk.
Awesome.
To you guys. Take
Thank
care.
you.
Bye-bye.